So we're going to talk about the analysis here, and the analysis, in essence, is your ability to draw conclusions from a set of facts. A little bit about it, it follows the evidence in the paragraph, so it goes claim, evidence, and now we're talking about the analysis. The goal of the analysis is to effectively explain what your evidence means and why it matters. A good analysis makes a great paragraph because the analysis is the moment in the paragraph in which you really get to shine, you really get to make your argument. If you are, however, finding that the analysis is hard, it is likely because your evidence is weak and your evidence isn't really saying anything, because without good evidence, you don't have anything to say. So an effective analysis versus a poor analysis. What an effective analysis will do is it explains what the evidence means in your own words. Meanwhile, a poor analysis just repeats the wording of that evidence. Oh gosh, we can't really see that red. An effective analysis will also explain why that evidence matters in relation to the claim. And on the other side, a bad analysis doesn't explain why it matters, and again, just repeats the wording of the claim. So this would be something like, it matters because it could end world hunger. You got to prove your point here. Next, it makes an implicit connection between the evidence and the claim. And on the flip side, again, it doesn't provide any new wording, any connections between claim and evidence. It's just repeating the wording of the claim and evidence. And then lastly, the evidence or the analysis has to be double the length of the evidence, because it's just hard to write an analysis, like a really strong analysis, in one sentence. And on the flip side, a poor analysis is only one sentence long. Now, in the evidence, we use sentence starters, we use those quote tags. In the analysis, I also have many sentence starters for you. And the reason you use them here is essentially using transitional language can help your paragraph to flow better, and it helps your reader understand your line of reasoning. Here are some examples. Remember, if an analysis needs to be 2 plus sentences, this is the first sentence, and this is the second. So you would say, by looking at this quote, one can see that whatever we can see. This means, tell us what that means. And then you would do that for each one. Now, as a little bit of a tip for writing, you as a good writer want to vary up your sentence starters. You don't want to say, by looking at this quote, every single time, because it makes your writing sound a little bit more repetitive and boring, to put it bluntly. Explicit analysis versus implicit analysis. We actually use both. So, explicit, what that means is it is stated clearly and in detail. There is no room for argument. There's no room for confusion or doubt. It's very clear. On the flip side, implicit means implied, though you don't directly say it. So, in your analysis, your first sentence needs to be the explicit meaning of your evidence in your own words. What do you want your audience to notice about the evidence? What do you want your audience to take away from the evidence? Because you and I are going to interpret it very differently. And sentence 2 should be what your evidence implies or suggests about the argument you are trying to convey. So, how does your evidence show your reasoning? So looking at this example here, we have a claim right here. It says students should not be able to use phones in school because phones take away from student learning. That is our claim. Now, our evidence is, according to the article, first and foremost, a pocket-sized computer with access to the internet is a distraction from lessons. So that is how it is taking away from lessons. It's a distraction. So we have our evidence right here. Next, we have our analysis. Evidence shows, so we're using a little transition there, that phones, especially those with access to the internet, would be a very tempting distraction for students. So this is putting the evidence in their own words by saying tempting distraction, because we said distraction here, and phones, especially those with internet, bringing in that idea of internet as well. Next, we have that implicit. How does this relate back to our claim? This means, again, starter word, that with the constant use of phones and social media, it would be unlikely that students would be able to avoid use of phones if phones were on their person during a classroom activity or classroom lesson. So all of this equals the analysis. The first sentence is saying, here's what the evidence says. The second sentence, why it matters in relation to our claim. That's it as far as the notes go. Now what I would like you to do is I would like you to practice it. So the FDA should not approve the use of GMO salmon because it could harm the natural environment. How does this piece of evidence show that it could harm the natural environment? Once you're done with that, you're fully done with your notes.